Hi Sophie, thank you for
Hi.
joining me today. So this is our episode 4 of our Women Who Make It Happen series. Would you like to give a little bit of an introduction about yourself?
Yeah, of course. So thank you for having me, for one. I'm Sophie Long. I'm the CEO of the Thistle Group. So the group has grown pretty significantly over the last 10 years. We're known best for regulatory and compliance consulting, and that's predominantly UK-focused businesses looking to enter the UK market or who are established in the market and need assistance and support with remaining on the right side of the FCA and PRA. We've developed further businesses within the group to really give more of a rounded service to our clients. So we also have an insurance brokerage, which is regulated. We have a compliance SaaS platform, which provides workflow management assistance with compliance operations. And we also have a suitability report writing tool for the IFA practitioners in the UK.
Very interesting. So how did you get to where you are being the CEO of the Thistle Group? That's quite a feat.
Yeah, I became CEO in April, so thank you, still relatively new in the role, just not new in the organisation. So I think I was employee number 4, potentially, 4 or 5. So I joined James Dingwall, who is founder and was then CEO of Thistle. I actually have a recruitment background and I worked in the financial services industry for about 10 years. I used to recruit for James, and he brought me into the business to start an internal recruitment desk. We were very focused in the investment space at that time, so it was relatively niche, and we were looking just to develop more of a contractor model for our client book. James went on holiday for 2 weeks and said to me, "Can you just pick up sales while I'm away?" Threw me in at the deep end because I hadn't done any form of compliance before. And I jumped in, made quite a few sales in the 2 weeks that he was off. And he said to me, "Right, you just lead sales from now on." And it really just grew from there and escalated. So as we grew the business, I moved into a sales director role. So I led all sales across all business lines and also led the marketing team. That then changed into Group MD when I returned back from my second baby. So after that second maternity leave, I came back into that Group MD role, which was really James's right-hand man to support with strategy, growth initiatives, and just really help him be an eye on the ground when he couldn't be, in terms of development of the business units, where people were struggling, where people needed additional support. Then Copper Street Capital took majority shareholding in us in October last year. And at that point, for the sort of 12 months previous to that, I was CEO in the background while James was leading at the front. And then we just made that transition in April this year. So it's been quite a journey.
I was going to say, you must have seen some changes over the past few years then. So how have you personally dealt with that? Like, what's been the biggest key to your success?
I'm pretty driven. I always have been.
You do come across like that.
I mean, I think just, you know what it's like working in a recruitment background.
I was going to say, there's a lot of, there's a lot of similarities there. So.
There are, and I think I worked in recruitment from a relatively young age in quite a male-dominated environment. So I worked in financial services, predominantly investment banking, change. So all my candidates were males, the majority of my team were males, and I just got thrown into the den. And even as a kid, I was really ambitious. I was very competitive in sport. And I think that's just been sort of a standpoint throughout my life. I've always wanted to achieve and do well. And I just try and do my best with opportunities that I'm given. I think if you come from a sales background and you're a natural salesperson, you thrive under pressure, you can deal with targets, and that helps you, if you're ambitious, on a different path. Did I think I'd end up in a compliance consultancy doing the role I'm doing? No, absolutely not. But I think I've just taken every opportunity that I've been given and run with it.
Very good. It's certainly a story to share, isn't it? So yeah. I can see a lot of similarities, certainly from the sales-driven element, and then it's led to where you are now. So congratulations on your CEO.
Thank you.
I think for you right now, like you said, you came from a very male-dominated industry sector within IB, investment banking, investments. More typically, what changes have you seen over the years when you've transitioned into the Thistle Group about the mentality of more women in leadership roles? Or
Yeah, absolutely. I think women now are given a lot more opportunity, and I think women are given the room to progress. Sort of in old school days of recruitment, it was 8 till 6 minimum. You could never really work part-time. But I actually moved into an organisation that were really flexible. They let me drop to a 4-day week. They just wanted to retain me, so made my life great. They had a lot of female recruiters in the business at the time, and were really flexible, offered flexible working, offered working from home a couple of days a week, which 15 years ago in recruitment was unheard of.
Yeah.
I think it still is now.
I've been in the industry 17 years, so yeah.
Yeah, which is just crazy. And then coming into Thistle, we've always had an approach of look after your staff and they will look after you back. I'm not a micromanager in any way, shape or form. I have no time for it and no want or desire to be on people's backs. I really like to empower people and give them the opportunity to run their own mini businesses within our business, give them enough freedom to be able to make decisions, but I also hold people accountable when it comes to what I expect them to do in their role. So we typically teamwork quite a lot with our leadership team. In compliance, I think probably compliance was relatively male dominated until 5 or 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I think you just see it completely different now. Our what we call practice area leads, so the people who run our divisions. We've got 2 senior female leaders in those divisions, Lorraine and Jess.
And Jess, yeah.
Who are absolutely exceptional. And also our clients. A lot of MLROs, a lot of CEOs, a lot of heads of divisions are all female. And I think when women are given the opportunity to be able to do that, when they're given the opportunity to go away and have babies and return to their careers, everyone has just taken that and completely run with it. And I think that's really impressive to see.
Yeah, no, that's really good. And I think just adopting that practice or that mindset of retaining the individual and making it work with them and for them, you get a lot more buy-in, a lot more commitment, a lot more loyalty.
You
back.
do.
So,
and I think there was always a mentality that people go off and have a baby. And I mean, babies aren't for everyone. Just because you're a female, it doesn't mean you're going to have a baby. But if you are on that path, there was kind of a mentality of if you go away and have a baby, you somehow combust and forget everything you've ever done in your life and work. You take a couple of years out and you come back and you're 7 years behind in your career. You have to come back in 3 levels down. And I just think that is so unfair. And I think no one admits to doing that, but I think women have really struggled with that opportunity to come back into the workplace at the level you went out of the workplace.
I do agree, actually. I've got a 4-year-old and I had my maternity leave, came back into the business. Interquest have really supported me. I did a 4-day week up until 2 weeks ago. Joined back full-time now.
I joined back full-time in April.
Yeah.
And it hits you like a truck.
It can do, yes. I think that's a really interesting thing you've just mentioned. And do you think it's more maybe the lack of confidence of the person coming back into the workplace, maybe thinking, am I still relevant? Can I add value as I used to? Or would you think it's maybe a wider generalisation from the industry itself?
I think it's probably a mix of the two. I think when you go off, you know yourself from doing it. Do you lose a bit of confidence and do you get baby brain over certain things? I used to be excellent.
It's a real thing.
It's a real thing. I used to be so good at remembering people's names and now I'm shocking. I remember faces, I remember things about their business, intricate detail about their business, but I cannot remember their name. So that's something I suffer with. So I'm always like, please, can I have name tags? That's all I need, just name tags. But I do think it's a confidence thing, backing yourself to re-enter the market. Ultimately, in compliance and regulation, get up to speed with your regs, get up to speed with publications, go to a few events, get out, network, read the press, and you can easily get back into the market. And there's so many employers out there who really do support that, who offer flexible working, who offer work from home. And I think if you are seasoned and professional, you can really get the most out of people by giving them a flexible work-life balance. Yeah. And I think you can then retain that commitment. offer training to your staff and embrace it.
Yeah. Do you think it's more from maybe the difference in gender, that female employees coming back from maternity leave, for example, or just female employees generally feel as though they need to do those courses, need to attend events to stay as relevant? I mean, we host industry events, as you know, and we have a general cohort. It can be very much a 50-50 balance of females and males, but
I think it's compliance and regulation. I think if you're out of the industry for 12 months and you haven't stayed abreast of up and coming changes, new legislation, you need to swat up. Yeah, you absolutely do. I think anyone, whether that's male or female, a lot of people now have shared paternity leave, and men might be out for 6 months, women might be out for 6 months. I think there's just a case of the industry that we work in. No matter who you are, you need to swat up to enter back in.
Yeah. You made a really interesting point earlier, actually. I just wanted to ask a little bit more. You said your background in sport as well, and giving you're very ambitious, you're very driven. What was that background for you, and how do you think that helped you to get to where you are today?
I loved competing. I loved sport. I loved being active. I loved team sports and being a team player. I did every sport under the sun at school, was in every club possible at school. I went into the fitness industry. That was my first job. I was a personal trainer and started my own business. So I was just quite motivated by doing something for yourself and really progressing as much as you could, and then took the step into recruitment. I fell into it because someone said to me, have you ever tried? I think most people do. No one sort of leaves school and says, I want to be a recruiter. Most people fall into it through a network or something. My mum was really inspiring to me because my mum worked in financial services. She was an exec assistant. She left London to have babies, stayed at home with us until I was 6 or 7. She re-entered the workplace when it was a transition of no one had computers. People were on word processors and just got given a computer on her first day, and she was like, I don't even know how to switch it on. And she became, really successful, went back to work full time, still ran our house and looked after my brother and I. And I found that really motivating. And sort of growing up through teenage years, seeing a lot of men be really, really successful and women stay at home just didn't really appeal to me. And I always thought, okay, so the man's out working and bringing in all the money, but what happens if the man goes? What happens then? So I was just very, very driven to make sure I was responsible for my own success and could look after myself ultimately. I didn't need to rely on anyone else. And that really has been the driving force.
I think that's a really powerful message. I have a 50-50 balance of males and females in my team. We were a team of 18. And I'm very much an advocate of working with each and every one to drive them in, what makes them tick, what's behind their motivations, why do they do what they do, and what are they passionate about? Because if they're driven for the right reasons, they're going to be more successful in what they do.
And I think it's really important as an employer. I mean, a team of 18 is huge. That sounds like a lot of work anyway in itself, but I think understanding personal drivers, what people want to be accountable for, bringing people on the journey. I've learned, and I'm still very much learning. I always say to everyone, I learn something new every single day, even now, and I love it. I think everyone should be really open to learning, open to new ways of doing things. I say to my team all the time, we'll all get stuck into a meeting. If you think I can do this better, or I can shape it better, or give you information in a better way, just put it back to me and I'm all ears, because I want to do things that work for the team, because the most important thing is your team are on your bus. Yeah. And your team are your team and you work as a unit. It shouldn't be this leader up here, closed door, no access, barking and shouting at a team who you're holding accountable if you don't loop them in on the journey.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I have my leadership team in place and we're exactly the same, bringing them all together and supporting each and every one. So yeah, a lot of similarities there, Sophie. You also mentioned obviously Thistle as the group. You have different divisions, obviously working more within compliance, financial crime, servicing clients around payments and insurance.
Yeah.
Generally, within your clients and your own staff, the balance between females and males, what challenges have you maybe experienced of trying to maintain that female cohort, female leadership, or have you seen any differences within your clients as well?
Not really, to be honest. Not internally, certainly. So I hired in both Jess and Lorraine into the team. I love having the females around and the leaders.
That's very good.
Yeah, exactly. I think women are extremely organised and good at plate spinning. And I love the balance between the males and females that we have. We have all different ages, people in all different life situations. When we're hiring for a role, it is who can do the role best, who is going to bring most to the table. Across most of the teams, it's relatively diverse. We've got some that are slightly more male dominated and some that are slightly more female dominated.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that's led by any particular industry. So our teams are investments, which could be anything from your stockbrokers, your retail platforms, your funds, your investment advisors and arrangers, which client base has historically been very male dominated, because it was stockbrokers and it was always two guys coming out of a firm setting up on their own. And I would say it still is quite heavily male dominated in that corporate finance, family offices, investment platforms, hedge funds. It's still very male dominated. The team is a blend that we have at Thistle. Payment services and e-money, complete mix on our side. Clients, complete mix. I think you see loads of these female fintech founders who are really trying to make a name for themselves. A lot of the time who've come out of this corporate where they'd sit in our investments division and moved into fintech and wanted to do something different. So we see an awful lot of that. We have a consumer credit, insurance and mortgages division. Relatively diverse, I would say. Team, however, is all male from our side. And then in the other businesses, it's a real mix. Operations and back office is a mix.
That's good. So there's
quite a lot of diversity.
Yeah, it sounds quite equal as well, generally. But you always get pockets in the industry that
you do
are more heavily weighted to one rather than the other. So we've seen a big trend in more females coming into compliance, financial crime and risk generally. I think compliance and financial crime, there's much more equality now. And maybe righting that previous gender imbalance. For you, being in your position, how do you make sure that this will have maybe the D&I policies at the front of mind, or what do you do as a company to ensure that you are doing what you can to ensure that you maintain that gender balance?
Yeah, it's always just in consideration. So any recruitment process that we go through, when we're looking at succession planning or future structuring, we're constantly trying to look 3 years ahead at what's the shape of us and where do we need to be, and then what does the team look like at that point. I think we've maintained a really good level of diversity and inclusion across the business. We've had a whole range of individuals from all different walks of life, backgrounds, ethnicities, genders, and I think we just strive to maintain that. The thing I always notice the difference in is the way our clients not expect us to dress, but the way the teams dress for their client base, which is a really funny one. So compliance always used to be, belts and braces, suits and ties, very business dress. If one of our staff would have come in jeans, I think we all would have just fallen on the floor and been like, what are you doing? Because we were so corporate in that investment space, and all the clients you then go out and see are all suited and booted, and you just mirror that. And when I say it's the complete opposite now, it's ridiculous. And I'm sure just like seeing some people in your office, you can see how different it is. I mean, back in the days of working at Reed, we used to have to wear Reed neck scarves, and the boys had to wear Reed ties. Like that's how corporate it was years and years and years ago. But now with payments and e-money, I mean, if we turn up, even if I turn up like this, everyone's in like Converse and jeans and sitting on bean bags. And I remember turning up one day, and I've always been like business dress all the way, because that's how I like, but also it makes me feel good. And I always feel like I work a little bit harder if I'm in business dress. I don't know why. But I went off to a meeting, I had a pencil skirt on and heels, and I sat down on this beanbag and I couldn't get back up again, and it was just mortifying. So it's like, okay, if I ever go to these incubators and accelerators, I'm in jeans and trainers, and that's what I've seen that's changed the most, rather than the whole gender piece or equality piece. It's just dressing for clients is quite funny.
Yeah, I completely agree, actually. I've worked for a few different companies whereby some of them were very suited and booted, had the corporate mentality, mirror matching the client base as well. But then you turn up to a fintech client and you imagine fintech who are basically like 5 people, and you just look so out of place.
You do, don't
thinking,
you?
do you understand our culture? Do
Yeah.
you understand what we're about, really? But it's just first impressions.
Yeah, it's funny.
If you're dressed with the mindset, I think, of being business-minded, business dress, then sometimes it's a bit more conducive to actually getting the outcomes that you want.
I completely agree, and I think that's a challenge for people with working from home. I don't know what you guys do in terms of a balance.
We're hybrid.
You're hybrid.
Yeah, we offer like 2 days from home, most
Perfect.
commonly.
Yeah, and for us it's 2 days in the office and 3 days from home. And I think offering that balance has been really, really important to people. And I also think, talking about women being able to come back into the industry, that has just allowed for that. Because if I look back to, full-time working in London, that's just not conducive with a young family or 2 people in the household who work full-time. And being able to balance that now with my husband, of I have my set days in London, I'm out the door before anyone wakes up and I'm home at bath time. And then he can also do the same on my work from home days, and just being able to go out and collect the kids and just be around a bit more, I think has made such a fundamental difference to people's lives, that they just get to see their kids, families, go to the gym, have a minute of well-being for themselves, rather than just being stuck on a train, stressed, anxious, not sitting down, hot, bothered, whatever it may be. But I think just giving people that balance, I've just seen people take a breath a bit more and just become a little bit more comfortable. And I don't think we as an organisation will ever go back to a full-time in the office kind of environment. The only people I feel who do suffer from work from home are some of our associates and senior associates who are trying to upskill. I think it's fantastic for senior members of the team who are experienced, knowledgeable. You give them a project and they're just cracking on working on their clients. For the new ones who are sponges and need to absorb more, we do suggest to them to come into the office 3 days a week, just so they can hear a little bit more about what's going on and be with their teams. But I find all of the video conferencing, and people then run off with headphones into video conference all the time, stops a lot of that knowledge share. I don't know if you guys have phones that ring anymore, but our phones don't ring.
We have work mobiles, but we are exactly the same. Everything you've just said is so similar. We encourage some of the new members of staff to be in the office, to get the coaching, the desk side support, learning from peers around them, learning from different senior members of the senior leadership team. And you can't do that from home, which there's obviously that pros and cons to the working from home balance then. But everything you've just said is almost an exact replica of what we do. And I do think you learn from people around you, and if you want to be the best that you can be, it's learning from the people who've been there, done that, got the t-shirt. I mean, everything I've taught my team, I've done myself. I'd never tell them to do something I've not done. I practice what I preach. But I think it's so important.
I do think it stunts growth in terms of being able to bring on some of those junior members of the team. I think it's just pushed development back by 3 to 6 months in terms of capabilities and upskilling, because of that lack of interaction. And also it's motivation. It depends on the individual. If you've got a really motivated junior who is eager to learn, they're asking to be on calls, they're asking to read documents, and they're hungry. If you've got someone who's possibly not so outwardly in their approach, a little bit more shy, I think they're the ones who can suffer unless you're on them all the time. And you don't want to be that micromanager, but you need to be there to support them. And that's quite a hard line to balance sometimes, and to juggle with how to then manage those individuals.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of the points you said.
Feel the same challenges.
Yes, definitely. I think just coming on to you've clearly got females within leadership roles within your business. If you could impart any words of wisdom, any knowledge, any advice to younger females coming up into the world of compliance, financial crime consulting, what would you say?
Be a dog with a bone and don't let it go. I just think you have to be tenacious, you have to be hungry, and you have to, whether you're male or female, you have to continuously prove yourself. But bang down doors, don't be afraid to ask questions, ask for more. James, our previous CEO and founder, I would be in his office every 6 months saying, hi, anything else I can be doing? If you want to give me any part of your role that you don't want to do anymore, happy to have it. Happy to shape it. I'll learn on the job. You don't need to train me. You know, I would just keep continuously just hound him. And I think if you can keep up that energy and that enthusiasm, you can set the world on fire. I think your hopes and dreams will become a reality, but you have to want it and you have to be prepared to work hard. This environment that we work in now is just no slackers. Yeah.
What do you think could be the only detrimental thing to women not succeeding, in your experience?
I think the family and work-life balance is really, really hard. I don't know how you feel, but I live in a constant cycle of guilt. So either you give too much time to your family, you feel guilty about work, and you give too much time to work and you feel guilty about your family. That's a very hard balance, and I think setting yourself clear boundaries is really important. So I'm an early bird, so I'm happy to work really early in the morning where required. I've always been really flexible when I was on a 4-day week to deal with anything urgent on my phone. But when it comes to the kids come home from, after school club and nursery, I'm there dinner time, laptop closed, phone away, and until they go to bed, I don't look at it again. And I think that for me is really important, to be able to give that time to my children. So I think just making sure that there's a balance always is really important. And nothing's that urgent is all I would say. There's a couple of things in your inbox that really are urgent, deal with them. Apart from that, you can not always have to respond immediately.
Very good words of advice. Thank you. Well, thank you for taking the time of meeting, Colleen.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
You are more than welcome.